Hi and welcome to another Carpenter Tutoring tutorial. I'm Amy and today we're going to be working through a couple examples of order of operations introduction video first. So since we're going to be using that order of operations, I always like to have a visual cue for myself, so I'm going to go ahead and write PEMDAS out on the side for myself. And this is just a quick reminder of each of the steps that we have to take. Now, it's also important that I write out the division between each step in order of operations because some of these operations are put on the same step as each other. So we have a clear cut between parentheses and exponents, a clear cut between exponents, and then multiplication and division could happen interchangeably, so they're together in a level, and addition and subtraction are also together at the end. Now that we have our visual cue, let's go ahead and look at some of the problems we have in front of us. First, we start with 40 minus 2 times 3 squared. So as I'm looking through this problem, I see three different operations. I see subtraction, multiplication, and an exponent. I also know that I can jump ahead to the E part of PEMDAS for exponents because we don't have any grouping symbols, no parentheses or other grouping symbols in this case, so the P is already handled by the time we start the problem. But we do have an exponent, so we'll have to handle that first. That means my focus at this point is here at 3 squared. That exponent is telling me to take my base of 3 and multiply it by itself twice. So it's really asking me for 3 times 3. Well, that is 9. So I've simplified that part of this expression. Now that I've resolved the exponents piece of the puzzle, I can write back in the other parts of this expression. So 40 minus 2 times 9. At this point, I still have subtraction and multiplication, but I've finished the exponents part. So I can move on to the next step, multiplication and division. I only see multiplication in this case, so I know I can start right there. For multiplication, I'll need the numbers on both sides of the multiplication symbol. So I need the 2 and the 9, and I'll need to multiply them together. 2 times 9 is 18, so I can simplify this to 18. Now I can bring down the rest of the expression, which was 40 minus. At this point, I only have subtraction left, so I've completed all multiplication and division, and I'm ready to do that subtraction. So our final step is 40 minus 18, which gives us an answer of 22. So 22 is the fully simplified version of this expression. Let's take a look at the next example. We have 2 times the quantity 5 plus 9 minus 6. Since we're starting a new problem, let's go ahead and clean up our PEMDAS markers again, and we can work through from the beginning. So first we have to work with any grouping symbols. We actually do have parentheses in this case, so I'll have to start with my focus here. So that tells me I'm focusing in on these parentheses. Now we've lucked out in this case because we only have one operation inside these parentheses, addition, but we'll have to handle that operation first. So I can simplify what's inside those parentheses. 5 plus 9 is 14, so I can turn that into 14. But I'm going to keep the parentheses around this until I can see if I don't need them anymore. I might still need them even though there's not an operation happening inside the parentheses because they may be standing for multiplication with some value outside the parentheses. So we'll leave them in for now and see if we still need them. Now that I've simplified this piece of the expression, I can bring down the other parts. So we still have this 2 out in front and then minus 6 in the back. As it turns out, we did need those parentheses because now that we have simplified the expression inside the parentheses, their function has shifted to showing multiplication. So I really have the operation of multiplication here, again, shown by those parentheses, as well as the operation of subtraction. So parentheses are handled, exponents are handled, but now we're on to multiplication and division. Since we're ready for multiplication and division, I know I have to focus on this section, 2 times 14. I can simplify this, so 2 times 14 is 28. And now that that's simplified, I can drop down the remaining parts of this expression, minus 6. Now I'm just down to one last operation, which is subtraction. That tells me that I've finished all of my multiplication and division, so we can finish off with this last operation. 28 minus 6 is 22. So our final answer is actually 22 for this one as well. Funny how that worked out. Let's take a look at one final example. In this case, we have the quantity 10 squared minus 4 times 8 divided by the quantity 8 plus 9. Let's clear off our PEMDAS chart and see where we need to start for this expression. All right, so we're starting with parentheses. Now I have two groups of parentheses here. Technically, I should handle them as I come across them going from left to right. So that means my primary focus is going to be here with the first set of parentheses that I see. All right, so I'm focusing in just on what's happening inside these parentheses. So I see a couple different operations. I have an exponent, I have subtraction, and I have multiplication. Looking to order of operations, I still have to use order of operations to tell me what to tackle inside these parentheses. So the first thing would be exponents, so I'm going to start with that 10 squared. 10 squared is telling me to multiply that base of 10 by itself twice, so 10 times 10, and that would give me 100. There are still other operations within these parentheses though, so I can't remove the parentheses yet, but I can turn the 10 squared into 100. So I'll have 100 minus 4 times 8. And I can bring the rest of the expression down as well, divided by the quantity of 8 plus 9. I'm just not going to change this at all until I finish the first set of parentheses. So now within, again, that first set of parentheses, which is still our focus, I only have subtraction and multiplication. We've handled all of the exponents here, so that means we're moving on to the multiplication. That means my focus here is 4 times 8, which is 32. Now that I've simplified that part, I can bring in all the other parts of the expression alongside it. So we have 100 minus 32, still in parentheses, divided by the quantity 8 plus 9. Still looking inside that first set of parentheses, now I'm down to just having subtraction, so I finished with multiplication and division. I can go ahead and simplify that subtraction. So 100 minus 32, well, let's see. 100 minus 30 is 70, and then taking away 2 more takes me to 68. Now that I've simplified this part, I still want to keep it in parentheses in case it's being used as multiplication with something outside the parentheses. And we can always get rid of them if we determine we don't need them. And now I can bring down the other parts of the expression, divided by the quantity 8 plus 9. This first set of parentheses is no longer being used for grouping, so that means we can move on from it at this point and focus on the second pair of parentheses. So now my focus is on this set of parentheses. As I look inside, I only have one operation, addition. But since we're looking at a new pair of parentheses, I have to restart my PEMDAS chart. So looking through, again, we only have the addition, so I know I'm going to start with 8 plus 9. Well, 8 plus 9 is 17. And again, I want to still keep this in parentheses just in case it's doing something else. It's a good habit to keep. And now I can bring down the rest of this expression. As I take a look at my expression at this point, I see that there's nothing happening inside either set of parentheses, no operations in there. There are also no numbers attached to those parenthetical expressions using the parentheses as multiplication. So that tells me it's okay for me to remove those parentheses. That leaves me with the final operation of 68 divided by 17, and this will simplify down to 4. So our simplification of this expression is 4. I hope it's been helpful to go through a couple order of operations examples. I have another video where we look at a couple more complicated examples with nested grouping symbols and more complicated operations, more steps. So please feel free to check that out if you'd like to have more of a challenge. But for today, if there are any questions that you have or other topics that you'd like to see discussed, please put them down in the comments below. You're also welcome to check out the description of this video, which includes a link to my website if you'd like to communicate with me more personally. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, and I'll catch you next time.